trial even gets to the end mark. We think that the problem is simple. If opinions are what will shape an outcome which they do agree and change their mind about and agree again somewhere along that first speaker's speech, we think there's a problem with regard to how they really understand the ability of opinions to influence these particular individuals in society, as well as somehow find its way back into the minds of the people in the trial. We think that it's important to look at how the courts should control information on the trial, and ultimately why the vicious media and its extension of greater harm to individuals cannot be what is allowed to really affect the decision at the end of the day. But before I go on to those constructive, I have 3 levels of response to the speaker previous. He tells us that opinions are inevitable when the facts are out there. He tells us that the real rationale for this is because the media is an objective body that tries to present multiple perspectives. But the quantification of this debate is that the ongoing trial hasn't reached a full-blown on fact exposition. It's still in the phase where there isn't anything yet that has been decided upon. The trial, which is still ongoing, means that there might still be things to change the opinion of a jury or a judge, depending on which system you actually have in this particular trial. What we think is dangerous is, number one, if you sequester the individuals, specifically during the trial process, it already assumes that they're going to find some way to be affected by the legal perception. That's precisely the principle behind sequestering. And if they allow for opinions to continue to proliferate, what that will lead to is more of a capacity for societal discourse to take a negative spin without real facts to have basis on. And we think that this is problematic, ultimately challenging to the way that you want the truth to naturally be what is decided upon. Second rebuttal, they tell us that transparency is the benefit. And they tell us that the opinion better be out in public, or else there are going to be people who rally in the middle of, I don't know, underground places, and get so angry that their opinion is not expressed. We don't think this makes sense, because these are, number one, not the stakeholders in the trial necessarily. Number two, these people might not even have legitimate input. What if these people are anti-homosexual who are going to feel bad about not expressing their rights to rally against Prop 8? We think that these individuals might feel like their opinions are being quashed, but lots of other opinions are being named as well, because you don't want opinions to be the basis for any trial or any court legislature. You want the facts out there, and you want people to be able to decide objectively, not based on their feelings. So transparency is the value, so we really have transparent access to facts, not opinions. And if facts are already out there and the trial is finished, then opinions can come out there. The last one is simple. Speculation, they tell us, is valid. And opinions are a legitimate way for us to really discuss the issue on a socially discursive level. We don't think that it has to be based on opinion. Roland specifically talked to you about why it's a problem for opinions to be the basis of more opinions. That means that you have less factual basis to even ground anything upon. And opinions just can continue to go into this negative extreme and really go into some form of negative characterization like O.J. Simpson expressed, because he just identified to that extreme. I'm going to talk to you about the first argument, about how the court should control the information on trial. And this is where we're going to look at the tension between the fundamental right to express, which they think is applicable in this debate, versus what we think is a higher balance, which is the right to a fair trial. We think it's important to understand that interplay. There is a power imbalance with influential media. And what you will inevitably have in this debacle is you're going to have people calling it the right to expression, when what they're really just doing is airing a little bit of grievance. But number one, they have to prove that these people who are in society have the direct stake in the trial, which they don't necessarily. And number two, you have to prove that it's going to be fair for us to potentially jeopardize the images and the mindsets of people who are involved in the trial. What is this particular mindset? Because of all of these opinions out there, open for public consumption, will really just change the way that the trial ends up. No factual basis by those opinions, and no way that these opinions can even really be the truth behind the matter. So we don't think they should even be factored in. And if you want to express things, wait till after the trial. We're not going to stop you at that point, no. But we think that the point of both the criminal justice system and courts with landmark civil cases are to be able to operate with immunity from criticism when the trial is still ongoing. We think that there's a certain level of privacy that has to be extended here. Because if you don't allow it, then you're really just going to have a lot of gerrymandering and people lobbying for there to be information out there that isn't valid to the case itself. It isn't even in the discovery process of the trial. The last thing I'll tell you on this argument is when it comes to the nuance of ongoing trials and particular decision. We've already seen this, for example, in Prop 8 or in other particularly volatile social legislation. We think that the right to know actually is trumped by the right of the state to be able to actually afford justice in that particular regard. Because although you have the right to know, after the trial, you can get that information. It will not be withheld. And in first world liberal democracies, you do have the Freedom of Information Act. We think that ultimately it's not going to be a problem, and what they really have a problem with is that they don't have anyone to talk about their feelings. For one second argument, are there any points?
You keep repeating that public opinion is going to shape the decision, but if a jury is sequestered and the judge is inured to the pressure of public opinion, how are you still maintaining this assertion?
Within the Lovelace, we already saw that the judge had a proclivity to determine the decision on form because there is so much mass support for that individual and the approach. We think that it's important to understand you cannot expect society to be completely isolated, even if you're sequestered. A phone call or two from your family, even discussion inside with someone with a biased opinion will change that outcome. So the second argument is on the vicious media and how that extends greater harm to individuals who are directly involved in the trial process. We think that opinions tend to be harsh, and they tend to be criticism, and they tend to actually vilify all of the people who they who have opinions about, to be particularly bad. We think the character assassinations are right, and we think that that's why Michael Jackson's sales went down after the first pedophile charge. We think again that the right to know, if you contrast it with the harm to real people who are really at stake in this particular trial, are too much to bear. Because the assumption is that the people who are airing their opinions even have a stake in the matter, but they are not affected much in reality. Their right to expression is merely just a function for them to be able to achieve their Maslow hierarchy of needs.